All the World's a Stage, 1912. I have always considered a humble man. In fact, many have praised this quality in me. It's true that despite my success and fame, I remain constant to my values as a person. Because of this humility, I'm perfectly happy to admit that I was not the first person to ever realize the benefit of make-believe. The Greeks got there first. Civilizations before them too, no doubt. And for this young lad growing up in the state of New Jersey, USA, there was definitely a form of make-believe that inspired me and continues to this day. You might not think I was able to talk about moving pictures, and have no fear, that time will come in this book of mine. No, the first time I saw entertainment on the scale beyond my imagination was in a different form altogether, vaudeville. For those of the youngsters reading this, because you love my cartoons and have no idea what I'm talking about, let me tell you a bit about this now for lost form. It's a real pity you never got the chance to experience it because nothing has been quite like it. In fact, you could argue, and some have, that cartoons have become the new vaudeville. Let me explain. Vaudeville was a kind of theater. You have seen it on stage in the local music hall. And if it was really popular on the big stages in the bigger cities, it wasn't like watching a play, and it wasn't like watching a concert. It was both, and neither. Actors did the short comic sketches. Performers would come out trained animals. Dancers danced it. Singers would sing. Magicians made magic. Each of these unique performances was called an act, and these acts could become famous in and of themselves, and audiences would choose what vaudeville shows to go to based it on the headlining acts. There was, for example, that notable funny married company duo George Burns and Gracie Allen, who became famous doing what they called it, the vaudeville circuit. That ended up, as they will not know, in many films on the radio with the Burns and Allen show, still a favorite of mine, and I make sure to listen to it whenever my busy schedule allows. As a matter of fact, a lot of successful vaudeville acts moved it to film. It was always a matter of personal pride, and pride for Patterson in general, that Lou Costello of Abbott and Costello fame was born and raised in our city. I always admired of him, and to this day hold it a great honor that he and I shared the stage, as it were, for the most successful and famous entertainers to come out of our city. I haven't had a chance to see him perform in person, but I always thought and still do think we'll get along just super. I am sure you can imagine what it's like for a kid growing up with no radio, not even that many books since my folks didn't read much, to go to the music hall and see the vaudeville show for the first time. The dark red foyer, the smell of tobacco in the air, the carpet splashed with alcohol that could never washed out. Now, and this sounds unpleasant, but the smell is one that is associated with a happy memory for me, so I had to say it. It was as comforting as the smell of freshly baked bread. These halls were glided with peeling gold paint that inspired to some kind of greenness. I very much enjoyed the scene, the way the illusion was still as impressive as the real thing. The arch over the grand doors to the orchestra seats definitely stood out with its cherubs and surely carved fabric. What was funny was that the cheapest sheets were through those doors, though you could think that could be the most expensive. That's where I sat, sometimes stood with my friends. Those started with those shows. See, the cheap sheets were on the ground floor, and they will serve us cheap snacks like peanuts. Those two things combined, along with some acts that were truly terrible, meant that you definitely heard some angry audience shouts and will definitely see a peanut projectile or two landing on the stage in front if you had a good aim. I will say I have excellent aim. You could really get the performer right between the eyes. It was all good fun, mind you, all in good fun. And it was all because we were so transported that we were there for a good time, to be distracted from the boring every day. Though to be honest, I was never fully distracted. I enjoyed entertainment. But what I enjoyed even more was watching the crowd, the way the faces would easily share what they were thinking inside. It's interesting. In normal life, people work so hard to hide what they are feeling, though I found that I can read people better than most. While watching a performance of any kind, folks, let your guard down They're showing expressions of the pure joy, pure fear, pure anger, pure sadness. These saturated colors of emotion, adults and kids alike. Maybe it's now one chance adults had to feel things like we were young. This is, in fact, one of the many reasons I choose cartoons as a preferred way to share my illusion of living. When people let their guards down in this way while watching Bendy, it allows the creator to stand aside the person to place an idea in their minds. To shape a dot, we get the chance to wander around inside them, which sounds very surgical, doesn't it? I had so much fun imagining Bendy as a doctor, Alice the nurse, opening ahead of the way one might open the gift, and messing around inside. Of course, as a kid, I didn't really think about that. When you're a kid, you don't think of adults as having been young once. They seem like a totally different kind of person, like they were always that way, born old, but as Joey drew, oh, I learned it quickly enough. We all trying to reconnect a part of ourselves. We were all young once. Just some of us remember the time better than others. My favorite acts were the funny ones. It didn't matter what kind of style they were. They could be funny dance or a funny comedy routine. Just as long as they made me laugh. Laughter to me was the most important than the other feeling, the most human reaction. I am always that kind of person who thought the world was more absurd than anything. You could tell folks a true story, and they wouldn't believe it. That sounds made up. Because people forget that real life is a wacky, has fake life. But I never forget. Truth is stranger than fiction, they said. They are right.